So hello, everyone. This is Mark Andrus, the Bishop of the Episcopal Church in the Diocese of California, which is the Bay Area in California, and
Sheila Andrus, married to this wonderful person.
And we are getting ready to go to what's called the Lambeth Conference. And we're both going to just give a little introduction to what that is and why is it important and what will we be doing. Also, we're being interviewed, I don't know if you can see them on the screen, by Stephanie Martin-Taylor and Adia Milian, and they also are part of the Diocese of California team that is engaged with the Lambeth Conference. Adia remotely from her perch in Miami, and Stephanie Martin-Taylor will actually be in Canterbury, where the conference is, and in Lambeth Palace on London Day. So fantastic that we have these two great communicators as part of the team. So the Lambeth Conference is a gathering of most of the bishops of the Anglican Communion and most of their spouses and partners. And it's been going on since the 1880s. It's at the invitation of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So it is the Archbishop's conference. His office issues the invitations, and they plan the program, and we are their guests. It happens about every 10 years. I say about every 10 years. That's been the rule, but for various reasons, it should have happened in 2018 before the pandemic, but it was delayed by the Archbishop's choice. And then the pandemic hit, and that caused more delay. So it's 12 years, I think, since the last Lambeth. And I am one of the bishops still active in the Episcopal Church who was at the 2008 Lambeth. And I feel grateful that I'm able to attend this one. Its purpose is fundamentally unity. And what I want to say about that is unity is not uniformity. It's not everybody thinking the same thing, agreeing on everything, but it is being of one mind and heart, more like one heart. And so Michael Ramsey, who was a very famous 20th century Archbishop of Canterbury, said, if you touch one bishop of the communion, you are touching all the bishops of the communion because they're all connected. And Archbishop Rowan Williams, the predecessor to the current Archbishop, talked about how there were instruments of unity. And the Lambeth Conference is one of those instruments of unity. So it's what does that mean? Well, it means that it's relational. So we're not there as a legislative body. We're unlike our General Convention, which just concluded, which has more functions than just being legislative, but certainly we recognize that it has a major legislative function. We reviewed over 400 pieces of legislation at the General Convention. We will review no legislation at the Lambeth Conference, which is not to say that there won't be some voting and some contentious work on voting, which we'll talk about. But the relational is at the top of the list, at the top of our consciousness. It's to learn who we are across the whole communion. The Anglican Communion is the third largest Christian body in the world. The Roman Catholic Church is by far the largest, and Eastern Orthodoxy, headed by the Patriarch of Constantinople, the Ecumenical Patriarch, is the second largest, and we're the third largest body. There's something like 88 million Anglicans in the world. It's a lot of people, and they're spread over almost the whole globe. So, we don't know each other. You can't know 88 million people, but this is a way to learn about each other's lives and each other's challenges. in 2008, we were organized into these groups that moved upward. So there was a group of 8 bishops. We were all in groups of 8, and we met every morning for Bible study and prayer. And then those 8 were, 5 of those groups would make a bigger group. So we got to know each other. And one day in 2008, we were assigned 2 topics for the larger group discussion. And they were human sexuality and climate change. And we had 2 hours to talk together. And I was the note taker for that group. And I was scribbling like mad. They undertook talking about climate change first and environmental degradation. And they took all but 10 minutes of the 2 hours to talk about that. And only 10 minutes to talk about human sexuality. So what we learned is that bishops in India, their dioceses were suffering from great floods. They were suffering from runoff from toxins from mining. They were dealing with China's need to have more and more resources for over 1 billion people. So they were much of the mining and the resources of these countries was going to China. It was amazing to hear what the reality of their lives was like. And in terms of human sexuality, it wasn't that was a small topic to them, or that they were afraid to talk about it. In fact, what I discovered was that bishops from other parts of the communion, parts of Africa, were in private, and in the intimacy of our relationship, they were able to say that they understood why we made the stands that our church has made respecting the rights of LGBTQ people. So we learned to respect each other, and we learned to know what each other's lives were really like. So that's what the conference is about. And I'll turn to you, Sheila.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with a show and tell. And I hope that this will be clear on the screen. Can you see that okay? It's an impression that I'm looking for.
Yes.
So this is the daily schedule for the time we're in Lambeth. And the point of me showing you the graphic is it will be a very rich time and very busy. It is an absolute privilege for me to be with Mark for this conference, and a good thing that the Anglican Communion brings together not only the bishops but also the spouses of bishops to be at this meeting. And Mark is going to talk a little bit about a point of tension about spouses in a minute. But just to give you a feel for what our time will be like together, every day will begin with what they call a Bible exposition. And the book of Peter is what will be used throughout the whole Anglican conference. So a Bible exposition is almost like a seminar on what will be used from Peter that day. I will be in a group of 8 spouses throughout the whole conference, and they'll be from all over the world. So that will be a lot of fun. And after the lecture time, there's Bible study time with our groups of 8, small break, a plenary session that will be on a theme. And there are about 10 themes where the Archbishop is looking for a statement, some consensus around various topics, and Mark will go over those.
Why don't you share them?
Well, the topics are safe church, which isn't that a wonderful thing to lead off the conference on? One on Anglican identity. And under that theme, there's actually some suggestions of various conferences and mechanisms that they want in place that would allow the communion to take action on various things together. That could be problematic. Reconciliation, human dignity. And under that theme, there's a point of tension, because coming forward in the Lambeth Call are statements about marriage being only between a man and a woman. And of course, the province of the Episcopal Church has taken wonderful and right stands on that issue. Environment and sustainable development, very important. Christian unity, interfaith relations, discipleship, science, and faith. So those are the themes that are going to be worked with throughout the week. So after a plenary session on a theme, there's lunch. Then the Lambeth Call will be, I think, a focused time for bishops and spouses in different sessions. There's a spouse event, a different one each day. And then there are seminars and receptions. And the special events open to the bishops and spouses will include a reception at Lambeth Palace with the Archbishop and his wife. There will be 5 different receptions, and we will be invited to one. So they're, with 5 different receptions, they're going to get all the bishops and spouses to one of them. There will be a day in London, and Mark will talk about something he's worked on for that. There's an opening service, there's a closing service, there's a night prayer service, and a morning prayer service every day. So I think just before passing it back to Mark, just a few thoughts that I have. One is that because of COVID, there hasn't been opportunity for the spouses of bishops in the Episcopal Church in our province of the Communion to see each other for a few years. So that will be a very happy opportunity for me to be able to see some folks and to meet some new spouses at the Lambeth Conference. So that coming together. The other thing is that I will be focused on taking to my opportunity to be with the spouse circle and other events as best I can, the vibrant and wonderful Diocese of California. All the positive that I can say, the commitments we have to justice issues, the work this diocese has done to support dioceses within our province and globally. And my hope is that I can do that in a way that is affirming of who we are, and especially to use the opportunities I have to remind people that we have spouses in the Episcopal Church that are not welcome to some of the events because they are in a same-gendered marriage. And so there will be opportunities for advocacy, opportunities for witness, opportunities for me to learn. And so I welcome your prayers, because I hope I can be authentic to who we are here, but also present who we are in a way that can be heard. So I'm going to pass it back to Mark.
That was great, Sheila. I think you should just do the rest of it. But I'll talk about 2 things. Environment and sustainable development. So big surprise that I'm involved in that. Bishop Michael Curry told me maybe 7 years ago, somewhere around one of his trips to Western Africa, that he took part with the host bishop in an outdoor in confirmation service with hundreds of young people and adults being confirmed. And the host bishop, had every person being confirmed plant a tree. And I thought, wow, what a fabulous idea. And we have created a service in this diocese called Eco Confirmation, which has some beautiful ways that our baptismal covenant is expanded so that we commit ourselves to the support of the life of the world, God's whole family, not just the human family. And so now we are going to be launching something called the Communion Forest, where people can work out those commitments from confirmation and in other settings, in tree planting, in forest restoration, in forest protection, in restoring or protecting or planting other kinds of plant communities like mangroves in coastal areas that protect estuaries and the shore from wave action, from prairie, in terms of prairies, the deep roots of prairie grasses and carbon sequestration all over the communion. We're going to be hopefully giving something inspiring to bishops and partners so that they see that they could make this commitment. You've seen that people like the founder of Salesforce is saying that he's going to be part of 1 trillion trees being planted in the world. And, there's been some criticism about how that feeds into carbon offset programs, and there's kind of greenwashing going on with all that. But the truth is that nature-based solutions, that is, ways that we can get CO2 into the ground, is really healthy for the planet. People call the Amazon and areas in Africa the lungs of the planet, the lungs of the planet, and that breathing. So we're doing lots of activities that put CO2 into the air, and all these beautiful plant communities are taking CO2 out of the air and putting it into the ground and giving us beautiful oxygen as a result. So I've been part of a little group. After I was inspired by Bishop Curry, I started this, and I've had tremendous partners from the Anglican Alliance and the Anglican Community Environmental Network.
And you've worked on this for years.
3 years we've been working on this, and the Anglican Indigenous Network. And it's going to be launched at the Lambeth Conference with the sponsorship of the Archbishop of Canterbury, who's written a beautiful introduction to it. And the London Day that Sheila referred to will be at Lambeth Palace. So this is called the Lambeth Conference. We are almost not at all at Lambeth, which is the official home of the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is part of London. We are about an hour and a half away in Canterbury, where Canterbury Cathedral is, which is the seat of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So that's where the conference is taking place. But one day we're all going to be bussed into London. We will go to Lambeth Palace. We'll be in the gardens of the palace out in the back. And the Archbishop of Canterbury and our friend Julio Marai, the Archbishop of Central America, and others will plant an English oak in the garden. And there's going to be this big launch of this thing we call the Communion Forest. It's really, it's one of the centerpieces of the whole Lambeth Conference. So I'm elated that, that the health of the earth is on the Archbishop's mind and heart, and that he is calling us to engage with that. It's fabulous.
And it really does bring a sense of liturgy and action together as well. That opportunity to remember, if bishops choose to do so, to invite that planting of a tree when young people are confirmed, as an example.
And on birthdays and anniversaries and so on. At the same time, Sheila mentioned a moment of tension. It's true. So Lambeth 1998, when Bishop Barbara Harris, our friend whom we lost 3 years ago, Bishop Harris was the first woman bishop in the world. And she was there at Lambeth 1998. And there was a very violent reaction to her presence there. She told me that bishops would beat on the back of her chair and say, "Go home." And there was a lot of hostility towards women's ordination, and certainly to women bishops. And that is not actually over. But then in 2008, because this church had confirmed as the Bishop of New Hampshire a partner gay man, Gene Robinson, the outrage was directed towards the LGBTQ community. And so that's what we were really confronting in 2008. That is not over. There are hundreds of bishops who will not be attending because they are in more conservative parts of the communion, and they don't want, they're boycotting basically. So the tensions are still there. The Archbishop of Canterbury himself is quite conservative on the issue of human sexuality. The United Kingdom has legal same-gender marriage. The Church of England does not, and he does not support that. So a document was just released to the bishops for study to get ready for these Lambeth calls that Sheila was talking about. And deep in the middle of it, the Archbishop is hoping that we will affirm a statement from 1998 that marriage is only between a man and a woman. And so, you know, I said this is about relationship, but it's also about, you know, you can't have a real relationship if you're not honest. And our church is going to be honest and loving and respectful at the same time.
Right.
And let me say that the model for that is Michael Curry. He has gone into the primates meetings time and again, and in the face of things that would really drive some people away and make them just frustrated and slam the door and walk away, Michael Curry stays in the meetings and he represents us, and he says, we're going to be related to each other and we're not backing down at the same time. And that's where your church is. We're not going to back down because it's a matter of people's lives. It's not just a theoretical thing. We know that transgender people of color in this country are extremely vulnerable in the United States. There are more murders of transgender women of color than any other category of people almost. They're very vulnerable. And that's true all over the world. So when we stand up for LGBTQ rights, this is not something about who gets to be on vestries. It is about that too. But it's really about fundamental human rights. And
I think at this point in our nation's history, when we've had very upsetting decision by the Supreme Court related to reproductive rights for women, that's so distressing. But the direction is pointing towards possible, you know, future cases about marriage equality and even contraception. So our voice is important. Our clarity of thinking is important. And as Mark was saying, these truths can be said in love. And I think it's very, this is a critical time. Anytime you have a global community, which is the Anglican Communion, we have an opportunity for building bridges and deeper understanding. And we're just going to do our best to do that in a way that's loving and thoughtful.
And Sheila really thoughtfully wrote down the names of the 3 bishops, I think it is the full list, of the Episcopal Church of Tech, who are in same-gender relationships, and their spouses.
And they're all our friends.
They're all our friends. The bishops have been invited, their spouses are not invited. So right off the bat, we are in.
Except spouses can go to the cafeteria and to worship services.
Yeah, but not the rest of the spouse activities and the rest of the conference.
So upsetting.
So, you know, they are the Right Reverend Dion Johnson, the Right Reverend Thomas Brown, and the Right Reverend Bonnie Perry, and their spouses, Giovanni Osorio Vasquez and Reverend Thomas Musin and Susan Harlow. Those 3 spouses are being excluded largely. And so we're starting right off the bat with not parity in this meeting. There was a lot of debate within the House of Bishops and with spouses about, you know, should we go? Should we stay away? And there was no single consensus on this, but the general feeling was that being in the conversation and witnessing to the fairness and the equity and the justice that we believe in was an important thing to do. I also respect those bishops who feel it was the wrong thing to go. And they are, there's several that are absenting themselves from this.
Of course, when some of our Episcopal bishops and spouses were making a decision about going or not, they did not know that there would be the Lambeth Call document.
Right. I mean,
and so it's even more important that Mark will be there and other bishops of the Episcopal Church, because they're actually, they will have an opportunity to say yes to some of these things, or no, we got to keep talking about this. We cannot affirm this. So it will be, I truly believe it will be a time of blessing. I know that we're going to be inspired. We're going to make new friends. We're going to meet a lot of loving people. We're going to be stretched, as people. And hopefully we'll be able to help others understand a different expression of God and the lessons of Jesus the Christ in this part of the communion, because we are so blessed by the diversity we have here.
Yeah, and we want to hear divergent experiences, divergent points of view, and again, we're not turning back at the same time. So
I just don't want to get kicked out.
You're not
so say your spouse. I don't know.
I mean, if we get kicked out,
sometimes if I get a little excited,
we'll just go to France earlier. If that's the case.
There are ground rules, aren't there? And there are. The Episcopal Church was, if I'm correct in my memory, was sanctioned.
We were
last time around. So
put into a category for 3 years where our representatives to the Anglican Consultative Council were not allowed to attend or participate. Yes. And there was a document that the former Archbishop of Canterbury and then his successor wanted to be adopted by the communion. And if it had been, then those kinds of punitive measures could have been made codified and made permanent possibilities. I will say that we helped defeat that, and my argument to the House of Bishops was that accepting that would change fundamentally the nature of the Anglican Communion, which is not a confessing church. It's not unlike the Presbyterian Church, for instance, that has a body of rules, a confession that everybody has to, sign on to. We have been about relationship, and we haven't had that body of. So to accept that would not only to be accept things that we could not affirm, like this statement from '98 about marriage is only between a man and a woman, but it would also be, in a meta way, accepting a whole different definition of who we are as a communion. So I'm really happy to say that died. And but that doesn't mean there's not an aspiration to bring it back in another way. I think that's what we're dealing with is, there's the tension goes on. And so the attempts to bring this back up in other ways, it's not unexpected.
But I think also, just as we understand here in the US and in other dioceses beyond the US border for the Episcopal province, words matter, commitments matter. So this is a very important meeting. I'm hoping and trusting that we'll have lighthearted moments.
I'm sure we will.
But it is a meeting where we're, we have an opportunity to witness and both of us in different ways. And
yeah, I mean, it's important to point out that of those 3 giant communions in the world, the Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, and Anglican, only the Anglican Communion has married clergy. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about that, but the Roman Catholic Church is over 1 billion people.
No married clergy.
And no married clergy. And no women clergy. And the Orthodox Church is, I believe, around 800 million people. No married clergy, no married bishops, and no women clergy.
So a special light. The Anglican Communion has a special light. It's already shining.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's baseline, right? Like it's extraordinary that that we have evolved, and that's the right word, into a more just, a better communion. One of the arguments against ordaining women was, well, we didn't do it for 2,000 years. And my response to that is, we were wrong for 2,000 years. It's like, that's not an argument to keep doing it, right? If you're doing the wrong thing for 2,000 years, you don't just keep doing it, you correct it. So we're evolving, we'll evolve in this area of respecting the LGBTQ community. I believe that. It just may not be at this Lambeth conference. We are going into a very hot London. As you probably know, the temperatures in London, where we'll fly into, are 103 degrees right now. This is the effect of human-made climate change.
105 yesterday.
105 yesterday. So I think Canterbury is a tiny tick cooler than London, but it's terrible, and people are really suffering all across Europe. I think last week Portugal had a temperature at 116, really awful. So, you know, there's a reminder in what we'll experience, what we're flying into how grave the responsibility for our church to engage with all these issues.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll need, you know, prayers for conversations, and also prayers for just safe travel and for health, because COVID is quite high in England. And Mark and I are vaccinated, double boosted. Nobody will never see anything except our eyes, because we'll have our mask on all the time. But COVID is quite high in England, but it's also quite high in Marin.
in Marin County here.
So it's sort of like,
it's about the same
okay.
rate, about the same rate.
I guess that's the world we're in now. So we're going to try to be very, very careful, but
so
lots of challenges.
I've just been talking on and on. Any questions, Adia, from you, or Stephanie, Diane, from you?
Well, it will be such an honor for me to be witnessing this Lambeth conference with you.
It will be so great to have you there.
As an observer, as an advocate, as a helper. It's going to be a whole new experience. I don't quite know what to expect. Do you have any advice for an observer? Like, what should I look for? What should I witness?
Wow.
How would you tell a first timer who's not an active, like a bishop or a spouse, to take it all in?
Such a wonderful question. Well, as I've related to you, Stephanie, Diane, last time, 2008, a priest of this diocese who had journalism background, Tom Jackson, who's a gay married man. And, you know, he didn't, I don't know if he had press pass or not, but he got out a story every day about what was going on. And he would interview people and so on. I think your role as a communicator, as a trained journalist, as a press person, it's just essential. You know, you're a keenly observant, intelligent, committed Christian, and being able to absorb and catalyze the things that you're experiencing, that you're hearing, interviews. I'm sure that many people are going to be really eager to talk with you. And sending that message out to our diocese is going to be just fantastic.
Well, and I hope we can bring people to talk to you.
Yeah.
Your little WhatsApp is going to be popping off
buzzing
constantly, I hope.
Yeah. And I know that you're going to be collaborating with Episcopal News Service with our friend Lynette Wilson, and Adia will be here pushing material out and helping. So I think, you know, it's limited access. As you said, there are places you can't go, and that it's the way this is. And I think part of that is to assure bishops and spouses that they can have conversations that are safe. So we all understand that, but there's plenty of zone space, green zone, if it were at the climate summit, where you can be and where people will meet you. And I think it's going to be rich.
And you are such a deeply faithful person that you're going to have your own experiences that I hope you will share, because it's more than a conference. It's a gathering of worshiping Anglicans, and so we're gonna, for better or for worse, we're all gonna just come together, and things are gonna happen, and you're gonna be in it. And are we so lucky to have you part
Both
of
of you.
this? Really just feel so grateful. And I know, Adia, you're gonna be helping behind the scenes.
I wish you were
so
going to be there in
I
person
wish
too.
you could be there in person, but
No, I just want to say that I loved watching you two at the same screen and fitting up. And I think that is so important sometimes that we don't see the other side. And I love that the Lambeth conference also has the spouses conference on the side, because I think that is a very important support that bishops need in their work. So Sheila, what are your hopes for the future of the spouses and of the bishops as we move forward in this world? And it's so much. And you guys now in this process of also moving into a transition of period of where Bishop Marc is retiring. As you guys move away from that responsibility, what is your hope, since it's the last Lambeth conference that you guys will be at?
yes,
What?
yes. Well, my hope is that this Lambeth conference experience for spouses will be what the goal is for the Episcopal Church spouse group, and that it is a space, it is a space of safety where people can feel heard. And truly, there's the life experience of someone who's a spouse to a clergy person or a bishop it's a particular life experience, and one that it's helpful to be with people who have a shared experience, because there are stresses that only come with that, loving the person who is called to ordained ministry. So my hope is that this small group of 8 spouses that I'll be with every day throughout the whole conference for our Bible studies and other special events, that it'll be a time where people feel supported, where they feel heard, where they can talk about things that they couldn't talk about maybe with other folks. Hopes for 2024, when we leave in the fullness of time, because the transition, the call of another bishop for this diocese, there's a whole process behind it. And so we have a little time to get ready. I can't think about it too much because I get a little lump in my throat when I do, because there's so many people we love here and so much we love about the place. But I think the closer we get to 2024, the more I will, hopefully we'll both be leaning into the people we love, where we're moving closer to. And I've said to Marc for a long time, after he is no longer when he's resigned as the Bishop of California, that he doesn't have to do anything except maybe tend a garden. He's worked so hard for so long. And, I look forward to a time when Marc can do his work that he always does as a scholar and maybe write a little bit more, and we can do a little weeding in a garden that we already have. and have time for prayer and opportunity to, raise our hand if there's something we can do to help, always in the community that we're connected to. But I don't know if that answers your question, Nadia, but don't get me talking too much about leaving, because I will, I'll probably start tearing up, but we've got time for me to get ready for
2 years.
that. So we should probably do another one of these at the end of it all, and
I bet that's their plan.
and I hope that we're going to be
Yeah.
able to say happy, hope we can say many happy things,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, this conversation is just beginning, and we will keep it going. And I'm sure there will be many, many rich stories to tell along the way and once you're back. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Safe travels.
Safe travels to you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe and come back to California.
We will.
Much love.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.